Hi, this is Misha, and we've already done kind of a teaser video of the new 550P for a pistol, imported by SAN Imports or JDI. And in that, we kind of promised we would do a comparison, as I have an original SIG Sauer imported back when they were still in Virginia. SG550-1SP, and these came in as rifles. These are the Preban guns. They came in pretty small numbers, 400 to 500, back in the late 80s. The 550 design dates back quite a ways, but really it didn't see military adoption. It was officially adopted in '86, but it really didn't go into the field until 1990 in large numbers. That's why it's called the STGW-90 in the Swiss Army. So really, the Preban era, so pre-1989, it was a very new gun, and so these only came in for a year or two. Only a few hundred, like I said, 400 or 500 in the late 80s. Even fewer are the 551 carbines came in. We're talking like 50. But this is a Preban SIG, bred over before all the import restrictions went into effect. I'm gonna have to kind of lay these this way because I don't want to lay them on the charging handles. Jerry was saying that he didn't like the safety on it, that he hit his finger.
You're good.
I noticed it. How does it compare to the new import? And this is made by Swiss Arms Neuhausen, SAN. Now, I've talked about the whole SIG-SAN relationship in other videos, but since it's really critical to this one, SIG manufactured guns in Switzerland since the 19th century. They made all kinds of the Schmidt-Rubin guns. They were very prolific. They did, of course, many of the Swiss Army's sidearms. They worked on a project with Beretta in the 60s, and then they parted ways in '68. This evolved into the SG550. What many might know because of the Femme guns out of Chile. And then they updated the 540 into the 550, or actually the 541, and then this became the 550 for adoption by the Swiss military. SIG would manufacture the STGW-90 for the Swiss military from the 80s until the late 90s. As with many other companies post-Cold War, it was essentially downsized and also modernized. With a lot of modern equipment, you don't need as many people. It's a long story. I'll try to simplify it. Basically, between 2000 and 2001, SIG became SAN. What happened? The firearms division of the SIG company in Neuhausen was basically sold off. And it was bought and acquired or whatever by the Ortmeyer Group, who also ended up with SIG Sauer in Germany and SIG Sauer Incorporated in the USA. So SIG in Switzerland no longer exists and has not done for nearly 20 years now. But the building, the equipment, all the technology from there was essentially virtually relocated. It never really moved to Swiss Arms Neuhausen. Now, it was dramatically downsized. The factory went from employing several hundred people to under 100 today. But of course, at the same time, they did purchase some new tooling and equipment, and they continue to develop the 550 line. So it's really just a name change. Think of IMI in Israel becoming IWI. Almost exactly the same situation. This is why they still manufacture 550s. While the military hasn't really purchased any new STGW90s in a while, because they obtained what they needed, Swiss Arms still refurbishes, maintains, and repairs existing rifles, and producing new ones mostly for police or export or for competition civilian shooters in Switzerland. So they have the rights, they have everything to make these guns. So with that in mind, there's a gun made in 2018, is this guy here. Compare up to a gun made in 1988. General wisdom is that the older guns are better. And you can really see this. I know this bipod's going to fail me. I don't know why I always try to use them. They're not great bipods. But general wisdom is that the older guns are better. And this isn't just for Swiss things. This is for everything, basically. People just have this attitude that kind of what came before is better. I went over the JDI gun a lot. And I don't notice much difference. I'm going to put the bipod down. Sorry guys, it makes me nervous. I wish these were a little more stable, but because they fold both directions and because we're on a slick table, they just don't stay up. On a carpeted surface, they do better. I have noticed a few differences. Let's start off with the major. The furniture is different. The handguard, the upper handguard seems pretty well the same. We have the vent cuts. But if you flip it over, you'll notice a circle here and then multiple rectangular cuts on the underside. This was done for barrel cooling. But on the newer gun with the more modern handguard, we don't really have all that. We have the same circular cut, and then we have one rectangular cut and no more. I would surmise this was actually done as an upgrade to keep debris out from getting in. Also, for people who had a more forward grip, they probably didn't want their hand directly under a vent. Still have the two in the front, the barrel still sticks out, we're good. And we have, of course, all these top ones. So that's a little different. The pistol grips are the same for all intents and purposes, but the buttstocks are different. And this is actually a change, and it really shows that the Prebans were early versions. This is a relatively early stock. Has more of a smooth finish. The butt plate has a different contour. The sling connection is different. It's also asymmetrical. It's actually offset to the right for some reason. The hinge and everything are the same, but the stock is a little different. The newer ones, of course, just have the kind of the common stock, still in green, but this is the common Swiss stock we're aware of. Butt plate has this kind of more rounded sling loop. It's in the middle now. A little bit different up here. As far as I know, this change was done on military rifles in the 90s too, and I'm sure any gun sent in for refurbishment would get the newer stock if the original was busted up. Okay, that is a difference. One internal I'm just going to mention on camera because I don't feel like disassembling it, just to show you. Like most imports, the little trip, it's a little tiny ledge on the right side of the bolt carrier that was meant to trip the full auto, is machined off on this, as it has been with pretty much all imports for ages. But on this Preban here, it still has that little lip on the carrier. It does nothing. It doesn't have anything to interact with. It doesn't have the cutout in the rail or any of the full auto bits, so it's very definitively a semi-auto. But it still has that little lip on the carrier, and I thought it was worth mentioning. On the other hand, the barrel is kind of interesting. Let me get my bayonet over here, guys. This is a Swiss military bayonet, thanks to a gentleman on the AK files. And notice, I'm gonna hold this a little awkwardly, guys. It has nothing to attach to. That's because even though these were Preban, because they were the SP model, and over in Switzerland they shaved off the ring that holds the bayonet lug. It's actually kind of a two-piece lug design, which is kind of neat. It means you can either put a NATO adapter or a Swiss adapter on. They also shaved down this hump where the grenade ring would have been. The hump's still there, but it's slimmer. And they even shaved down the flash hider, which is again a single piece with the barrel. So a 22 millimeter grenade, let me just kind of put this down, wouldn't fit on enough to work, even though the ring's gone and all that. See, here's the bayonet. I put it on, it's loose. That's because they shaved it down by a millimeter or two. So even if the lug was here, the bayonet would fit very loosely. So it's kind of interesting. It seems like they're mostly focused on the grenade launcher aspects, but also taking the bayonet lug off was kind of unique. It reminds me a lot of the HKs from the 80s, how they went above and beyond. These still came with the bipod. They still took standard mags. This is an original mag marked SIG, SIG. Folding trigger guard, obviously folding stock, diopter sights. These originally did have the folding night sight. Oh, come on. There we go. And the two vials in the rear diopter here. Of course, now they're long expired. So everything else was pretty well military. This even has the 1 in 10, because it's a 50-1, has the 1 in 10 twist, which was originally made in Switzerland to optimize with their GP90 projectile, which was 63 grain. Everything else is correct in military. So let's talk about the new import. This is one thing I really like about it. This is not neutered. We can put our bayonet on, which, I mean, who doesn't need a bayonet, right guys? It fits on perfectly. It has the loop on the block. It doesn't actually come with the lug, but you can get the lug. You can also get a NATO version. It's just held in with a pin, so it's easy to swap them out. The hider has not been shaved down, so the bayonet fits without any wiggle. That's neat. It also has the full hump on the barrel, even has the spring for the rifle grenade in it. So that has not been neutered. The only question I have, I want to point this at you folks, but I'll show you it's perfectly safe. See? This flash hider does not have the internal threading for the blank fire device. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if SGG-W90s didn't always have it, if it was just an option. I don't know why they would have removed it for import, because other imports that JDI has brought over still have the threading. For example, the 551P pistols and the 553LB single piece barrel pistols have the internal threading. So I think its omission is not a US legal thing. I could be wrong. If anyone knows, or it could just be that SAN doesn't typically put the internal threads in the 20.7, 20.8 inch barrels now. I don't know. Other than that, I don't notice anything that appears neutered. Now I will say this is a 50-2 which means it has a 1-in-7 twist, which is NATO standard for 62 grain. So it has the faster twist, more modern twist. Some Prebans also had this twist, so they weren't all -1s. And really for American shooters, they would probably prefer the 1-in-7. I didn't mind the 1-in-10 because I have a lot of 55 grain ammo. It's been said that the Swiss GP90, which they call 5.6, the ammunition will work in both their gun and NATO guns, but I mixed that up. That their ammo will work in their guns, but not in other NATO guns, but the vice versa, NATO ammo 5.56 will work in theirs. This isn't true. Really, all GP90 5.6 is a Swiss loading of the NATO cartridge, 5.56 223 Remington. The projectile's a little different. It doesn't have a core. It's a little bit different, but they are completely interchangeable. You can put a GP90 round in this with the 1-in-7 and it'll work fine. It just won't stabilize as nice as it would with the 1-in-10, and vice versa. You can put 62 grain NATO spec in the 1-in-10 and it'll work fine, maybe just not quite stabilizing the way intended, but they are interchangeable. The reason for the name difference was simply for Switzerland's appearance of neutrality. They didn't want to be seen in the 80s as going to a NATO standard caliber, so they reworked it and made it their own. This is all. This is really all. And of course, I'm sure they were going for better accuracy, as they did with like 7.5 GP11 compared to say 308 and all that. So feature-wise, I really think the new gun is better because we have the bayonet lug, mount, and we have the grenade loop. Still have the bipod. These do come with this folding light bipod. We have the upswept charging handle, the traditional style. We have the mounting points for the optic. We have the adapters, and these do have working night sights, front and back, which is great. These come in as pistols without the stock, obviously. But the stock is easily added, doesn't require gunsmithing, and since the barrel's over 16, there's no legal issues of adding a shoulder stock to this weapon. So you can pick up a stock from several sources, and once you get it home, pop it on, and there you go. You have a folding stock. You could even put in the early style, like on this rifle. This still even has the nub on the handguard to lock it into. Still the folding trigger guard, and this is all Switzerland. This is all made in Swissland. This isn't an American clone copy or otherwise generic. And it even comes in taking standard magazines, double stack standard magwell. It ships with 120. Most of JDI's imports come with 30s because they're the newer guns, but for this, the order was to make them as close to military as legally possible, so they shipped them with the mag they would normally ship a military gun with. Has the locking tabs too. So feature-wise, I'm liking the JDI. Now, fit and finish is a little hard to compare because this is a brand new gun, and this is a gun that is not new, that is 30 years old, and had at least a few hundred rounds to it. But even there, they're pretty close. Let's pop our mags out, try a few things. Luckily that one's SIG marked, so I won't mix these up later. Let's see how this is a nice, smooth gun. Nice trigger. These triggers are adjustable, and I have tinkered with this one a bit. Upward to lower play is minimal. In the front, we actually have a little bit. Again, we just have push pins, so it's to be expected. In the back, we have very, very, very little on this particular gun. a little bit of side to side, and a tiny bit of up down, but just very small. Again, this gun has been shot some, so. As far as the handguard, we have a little bit of play. These are just clamshelled together. So they have a little bit of front back play, which is common for any of these handguards. But it's a tiny amount, not even a millimeter. Sights are straight, welds are very clean on this rear sight base. No real machining marks. Safety is smooth. Positive detent, but nothing too aggressive. The trigger guard folds with nice detents as well. Stock is tight. Stays in position, folds over. You get the idea. It's a SIG gun. So, the new one. It's not quite as smooth, but it is pretty smooth. Keep in mind this is brand new. Never had a round through it. Still has some grease in it. I actually expect it to smooth out a lot after 100 rounds or so, but comparing it to most, all ARs and stuff, it's smooth. The spring does feel a little stronger, again, probably being brand new and unfired. The trigger, I think if I adjust the stop, will feel very similar. There's no grit. It has a two-stage system in both with take-up, and then you hit a little resistance and then there. So the trigger is pretty well the same. Safety, I'm going to say it's about equal. Nice positive detents. Trigger guard is stiff, but also that's not a bad thing on a trigger guard. Has good detents, maybe not quite as positive as on the Preban, but it's also a stiffer spring on it. So it's definitely not coming loose. And again, as it wears in, it may become a little easier to work. But that isn't something you want easy to move. Upper to lower play. There's a little bit of side to side here too. I'd say the same or maybe a tiny hair less than the Preban. In the rear, we have basically no vertical play and a tiny amount of side to side. I'm going to say this one has a little less front play side to side and a little more rear play side to side. This one seems even, like both front and rear have about the same amount of play. This one has more play in the front, but the rear has basically none, so it's a little more uneven on the play there. As for the handguards, these are solid. There's no wiggle at all. And that's, I don't encounter that too frequently in the Swiss guns. Usually because these are just held in by the upper to lower and the pin, there's at least some play because they're not screwed on because they come off for disassembly. On the other hand, the bipod seems to have a little bit weaker of a spring, like it kind of comes out just a little bit like that. Whereas on the Preban, the bipod seems to seat just a little bit snug. Has a little bit more spring to it. But that's really nitpicking. But that's what we're all into, right? People who buy Swiss guns are nitpickers. They both have, you know, rattle and play, obviously. And you can easily remove the bipod if you don't want it on. You just take the lower handguard off and it just rotates off, much like an HK. The sights are truly identical. Like I said, this has no exposed welds to speak of on the rear. The newer ones do have a little bit more welding visible. It's still good clean welds, but you can see it, and I have a feeling that's because of how they manufacture. The newer ones are made by machine, and I don't think they do quite the final finishing on them that they originally did. The original ones were done by hand, and I'm sure there was some grinding and polishing after the fact. The finish is the same, essentially. The newer polymer is the same, maybe a little different shade of green, but the polymer was always made by a subcontractor, so, and there's always a couple of different ones they used in Switzerland. Interestingly, a lot of the newer 551s and 553s have little holes drilled in the side for attaching little rails. I don't feel any on this handguard, so it seems to be the original spec without the little anchor holes for rails, which is nice, because I think they knew people buying these were going for that original look. Gas valve has a good detent in both, nothing really to speak of there. It's a little noisier, I don't know if that really matters. This one still has quite a bit of grease in the valve, so that's probably why I didn't have quite as much noise. The only other thing I can think of, the mag well. I noticed on this one, let me grab the original mag. The mag well is kind of tight. Okay, I said that. Maybe it's the mag that's tight. Let me try, this is a brand new mag that it came with. Yeah, see, it's got a little, not much to take it out, but with this mag, it just comes right out. Let's try both in the Preban. I wasn't sure before doing the video if that was the mag well or the magazine. Looks like it's the magazine. Just brand new mag versus one that's been used a bit. Let's see here. Here's our original. Smooth lock in. Here's our new one. Yeah, so that sticks too. That's not a gun, that's a magazine thing. And that's because these all have front locking lugs like a Kalashnikov. So I'm sure this older mag, the lug is a little more worn in. The other internals, aside from the bolt group, to me, look identical. Trigger group, all that. The steel lower seems identical. Like I said, the charging handle, storage compartment, and the pistol grip. These even come with the very classic Swiss name tag in them. It's blank, so you can put your name on your very own STGW90 and play Swiss Alpine Army Man. Oh, I forgot to talk about the stock fold. It's also extremely tight. See, it stays in position too. No wiggle. Locks up great. There's no issues there. Alrighty, well, that is my comparison. Boy, which do I like better? And this is a question I've been asking myself since I heard these are finally coming in. Well, let's see, pros and cons. And we'll wrap this long-ass video up for you guys. This one, really its biggest pro is that it is a Preban. One of only a few hundred. Also, it says SIG on the side and is imported by SIG Sauer back in Virginia. And to me, the 1 in 10 twist being a 50-1 is a positive. To other people, they would prefer a 50-2. So that's kind of a draw, but for me, I like that it has the 1 in 10. I also like that it has the early style stock. And I think the early style handguards with the extra vent holes kind of neat. On the other hand, the barrel has been neutered, and this has always bugged me about this gun. The grenade ring being shaved down, okay, I can live with that. The hump's there, so the profile looks right. But the flash hider being shaved down bugs me because you can't replace it. It's part of the barrel. And the lack of the grenade ring, excuse me, the bayonet ring for the lug. I've thought about replacing the front sight base, but I hate altering Preban guns. And even if I did, the bayonet would still fit loose on this flash hider, so what's the point? I don't know why they did that with the 550s, especially the bayonet part, but they did. There are some guns marked PE90 in the USA. No one really knows how they came in. They do have the bayonet lug and the grenade ring. They also go for even more money than this gun, which is an already very expensive gun. So yeah, if you find a PE90, honestly they're over 10 grand easily. And for whatever reason, the PE90s often look worn. They're usually not in new condition. They're 80-90% at best, which leads me to think they came in kind of as surplus or something. I don't know. No one really knows for sure. It's worth pointing out that in Switzerland, the military guns are called 550, with the ones that come from the factory as semi-only as PE90s. And I confirmed that with Dave at JDI. So this one, its pros are pretty obvious. We get the bayonet lug, which I'll keep harping on because I like guns that are military correct. The grenade ring's also fun. You're one of those that gives your gun a bell. You can ring your gun. It's made from all new parts, of course. So, you know, you can buy one brand new and be the sole owner. Comes in as a pistol. You can easily add your stock. It is marked SAN Imports, which, you know, is at least the right name. And it has the 1-in-7 twist, which, while maybe not my personal preference, most shooters would probably prefer. Both of these guns are serial matching, of course. So which one am I going to keep? I'm going to keep this one. I've thought about it a lot, and it really came down to fit and finish. Before these came in, I wasn't sure if they would be the same as a Preban, but honestly, the feel is there. It feels the same. The parts are as tight. So I'm gonna, move the 550 Preban over to a collector. This is what I still consider a shooter grade one. I mean, I've always shot it. Why would you not? It's a fantastic gun. Very smooth. But the SIG name on the side brings a premium. And it's going to go for more. I don't know what one of these is worth now, but more than a modern one. And you get a lot of guys that really like Preban in addition to the SIG name. So I'm going to pass it along to one of those guys. And I'm sure they will greatly enjoy it. I sure have. This one, I don't mind that it's marked SAN, really, because that's legitimately who makes these and maintains these for the military. And yes, while there are only a few hundred of the Prebans, right now there's only 50 of these in the country. So they're technically even rarer. Who knows how many 550 type guns in total JDI may bring in, but right now this is a much rarer gun, nearly like a 10-to-1 ratio. So that to me is pretty neat in and of itself. It costs less. It's still not a cheap gun by any means, but it's not expensive enough to the point that I would worry. Every time I took this one to the range, I just worried something would happen to it or something happened to our car. This is one of those guns I wouldn't be reckless with, but I wouldn't worry as much over. So I feel more comfortable transporting and shooting this one. I like the military features, and I think it'll look good in my Swiss collection as a representative of an STGW90. So you should be able to look forward to quite a few range videos with this guy, as well as other products from JDI, Swiss SAN Imports. And if you missed this one, he appears in many of our older videos, so he won't be gone. And I'm very happy I had the opportunity to own a Preban SIG for a number of years and really inspect it and shoot it and get to know it. I love getting to know any kind of these guns and just the ins and outs, so the opportunity to learn was fantastic either way. And I have my friend Steve to thank for this guy. Found it years ago. It was actually an ex-police gun, I believe. That's why I didn't mind shooting it. Well, I hope that was a thorough enough comparison for you guys. I'm sure as we shoot the new 550P, we'll talk more about it. Also comparing it to things like the 553 and 551. But for now, that's about all I can share. These just came in this week. Today is July 27th, 2018. This rifle came in July 26th. These just got over from Switzerland not even a week ago. I think they hit either Saturday or Monday. And to Dave's credit, he was very quick to get these out, which I really think we should applaud him for, even though these were supposed to be here in February or March, and they ended up showing up in late July. That wasn't Dave's doing, that was Swiss Arms. But once they got them to him, he really busted his hump to get them out to us guys, and I mean that sincerely. I'm a small business owner too, and I know how hectic it can be to get 50, 60 shipments out. So I'm very appreciative of his efforts there. Honestly, all my interactions with him have been very positive. This isn't a plug, I'm not paid. I mean, I paid the same price for this all of you guys did. So nothing special here, no special treatment, but when I'm happy, I'm happy. And I am happy with this gun. Alrighty, folks. I'm sure others have these, so we'd love to talk about yours in the comments below. I'd like to hear what serials you have. I obtained number 25 and number 26. I kept 25, and number 26 went to my buddy Steve I just mentioned. Got us both some. So I'd love to hear who got, like 1, 2, 10, 50, 48, 49. Kind of be interesting to see who got all of them. Mine are smack dab in the middle, which is neat in of itself. As always, we really appreciate you tuning in. Please click like, and please go over to our Patreon page and donate, because my credit card bill for this will come due in August, so I gotta pay a credit card bill. Yeah. This is Misha. And we'll catch you next time.